You don't want to do any honorable mentions?
I don't actually.
Okay. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Crams are here. It is our big finale to the year 2022, and it's time to unveil our top 10 favorite albums of the year. Top 10 each, that is, if you haven't seen this channel before. We will go around in a circle, each reveal one at a time until we get to our number ones. It's been a long road. We've been listening to a ton of music all year long. And it comes down to this. I've got, I think, a decent idea of what Joe's got, but Cram's a mystery to me.
Um, yeah, Joe kind of played his hand a little bit, getting overly excited for some things. Knowing Joe, he might just play his own devil's advocate and be like, "Well, everyone thinks I'm picking that, so I won't go with it." But no, I think a lot of people have a pretty good idea. I did tell you guys in the group chat that mine's a very Cramser list, and then in the Discord, I offered up a prize. If anyone could guess six out of my top 10, and a lot of people were guessing similar albums. So it feels like some people have a finger on what they think I like, at least. But there's usually a surprise among all of us in there, except Jason. Jason's kind of typical.
Shall we get it started? Who's going first?
All right. Well, my number 10, 2022, I listened to 212 albums this year, which I think is a new record for me for a single calendar year listening. And my number 10, we had him on this channel. Here he is. It's Michael Ralt, self-titled Michael Ralt. This one, there's a lot of shuffling at the end of the year, and I hadn't listened to it in a while. So I went back, I threw it on vinyl, and it hit me again. This is like cruising in your convertible, straight out of the 70s kind of music. Love the production. It has a great sparkle. They use so many instruments on this album. Everything. There's clavinets and all sorts of different keys and everything. But it's got that great 70s production where everything is separated really nicely. The mix is great. There's a great groove to it. Exactly what I needed. Sounds like somebody crossbred like the things that Do for Love by 10cc and My Old School by Steely Dan. And it's just a really fun record. And I give a bonus 0.1 for the use of the clavinet in this album because that's very important to me as a big Stevie Wonder fan. And it's just a lot of fun. And then the final track channels the Birds in a really surprising but nice way. So that's my number 10, Michael Ralt, self-titled.
Didn't see that breaking your top 10. I got that at 3 stars this year. I don't think it's going to make Jason's top 10. Jason, you go next.
Heading down to Brazil for my number 10. I got Mi Coisas Invisíveis, I believe is how you say it. It means 1,000 invisible things. It's a record by Tim Bernardes. He's from the band Uterno, who made my top 10 list in 2019. So this isn't a total left field pick for me. This is his second solo album. He also put out a solo record in 2017. I love his voice, love his melodic sensibility. It's kind of rooted in rock and pop, but he also pulls in a lot of Brazilian influence, the Brazilian music of the 60s and 70s specifically, a lot of Tropicalia, that kind of stuff. So it feels a little exotic, but also feels familiar at the same time. It's a good middle ground. It's sung entirely in Portuguese. The melodies soar. The lyrics just flow gorgeously. The arrangements are perfect. I hope they're good lyrics. I don't know if they're good. I would be bummed to find out that the lyrics on this record suck, but they sound great. And he said that the main theme of the record is him being surprised by the existence of existence. The arrangements are great, songs that are enhanced with some strings, a lot of strings and some horns and stuff like that. But the songs themselves are fairly simple, mostly like acoustic guitar based, some on piano. He plays most of the instruments himself. He wrote all of the string and horn arrangements himself. I think it's a very good record. I like his band a lot, so check them out as well. It's like sub 5 wind chill here right now, maybe even worse than that. So if you need like a vacation in your mind, this is a good record to listen to kind of take you somewhere warmer. And I think a lot of people like it. So check it out. Tim Bernardes, Mi Coisas Invisibles. I think I said it right that time.
Wow, didn't see that coming because I didn't see it or hear it or know about it. And I think Joe feels the same way. Look at poor Joe down there. He could use a ticket to Brazil right now. All right, 2022. I can't decide if this was worse than 21. It's not as top heavy, but I don't think there are as many duds. My number 10 and 9 are only at 4 stars, which means great. And my number 10, 10's always the hardest, isn't it, guys? Like your 11 is just like sorry. My number 10 is Romeo and Juliet by Ryan Adams. Second year in a row, Ryan Adams makes it. There was like an 84% chance he got an album on here anyway, because he released half of the discographies known to man. He released 5 albums this year. This one is a double album, epic 19-song album. Got a little bit carryover from Big Colors of last year, which I did nominate. Some of that big 80s vocal production that Big Colors had. The songs are a little more generally upbeat sounding and kind of motor along in his arrogant country rock singer songwriter style. But the quality of the songwriting here has not dipped one bit in these last 22 years or so, or even more if you go back to Whiskey Town. It's got a really good, almost like Mellencamp Heartland kind of soul at its core, with that blend of like 70s Jackson Browne style. It's like rustic and lush simultaneously. His singing is on point, luminescent and thick. Roller Coaster and In the Blue of the Night are a great 1-2 punch to open it. I Can't Remember has a terrific youthful chorus with a spin around like a merry-go-round in my head. Lyrics are great. I very much, like this era of his soulful kind of yacht rocky kind of vibe that he's playing off of. And there's some cooler, more unique stuff and like this jagged 80s kind of experimental stuff sounding on this, like the song Something's Missing. But overall, you kind of get everything you want from a Ryan Adams record. You get acoustic soft ballads like the title track, with a more folk vibe. You get piano work like in Rain in LA. It's a storyteller album. I don't think it sulks as much of his other albums, which is really nice. There's some really cool guitar work on it too. He's a very underrated guitarist. The song In the Meadow has some really cool guitar. And really underrated big hooks that get stuck in your head, like the song Hold Me Together. 19 songs, and the album moves really well. Great sequencing. It's not random, but you alternate moods frequently enough to never get bored. I'm going to give every album, I'm going to give 3 song recommendations, which I believe we'll put on a playlist at the end of the year. But since it's a double album, I'm going to go 6, Roller Coaster, In the Blue of the Night, In the Meadow, At Home with the Animals, Hold Me Together, and My Heaven, number 10, Romeo and Juliet, which is an homage to a very famous play, I believe. But 4 stars, number 10 for Ryan Adams, Romeo and Juliet. Thought I would go Chris if I was going Ryan Adams, huh? No.
I listened to Chris. I liked it. I did not listen to Romeo and Juliet. I heard way too many double albums this year. 2022, everybody just busting out. Oh, we need to put out a double album. The worst trend of the year for sure. Like all these double albums coming out, and Ryan falls right into the trap. And no one wants 6 songs from the same album on a playlist. That's outrageous.
Did you mean Ryan fell in the trap or Ryan Adams? Me? I don't fell. What?
You fell into the trap, and Ryan Adams fell into the trap. Everybody's falling in the trap. Not Michael Ralt. His album was like a quick 34, 35 minutes. Good job, buddy. Number nine. Expert in a Dying Field by the Beths. Beths made my list back in 2020. They were number 9 then, and they're number 9 again, but I prefer this album. I think it's even a step up from Jump Rope Gazers. And I kind of feel like the Beths are like the Southern Hemisphere kind of bizarro version of Alvvays. She's got a similar feel to her voice. Elizabeth Stokes got like a little bit of a slacker vocal to her, but then she does those great runs and those flights of fancy, which are really cool. The rest of the band chimes in a lot. They do some really lovely harmonies, but underneath it is a little tougher, grungier sound than always, dreamy kind of pop. It makes me think of like late 90s alt rock, maybe some garbage or Just something a little heavier mixed in. But some really good playing, just strong hooks on every song. And the harmonies, especially on I Want to Listen, are just gorgeous. And Stokes has such a beautiful voice. It just makes it work. I mean, it's just a really pleasing to listen to album. And another winner from the Beths. So yeah, number 9.
I saw when I went to see Courtney Barnett over the summer, the Beths and Alvvays were the 2 openers for her.
Wow, they definitely should be headlining over her.
All right. Well, Mi Coisas Invisives is a double album. My number 9 is half of a double album. This artist released 2 halves of a double album this year. I've got Gov 3 by Young Gov. He put out both 3 and 4 this year, both of which I think are very good, but I think Gov 3 edges out 4 with just nonstop hooks, incredible pop craft. I would say he's for fans of power pop, Big Star, Badfinger, Raspberries, Rundgren, all that classic 70s pop stuff. Despite his name being Young Gov, he is in fact not a rapper. The melodies here feel timeless, kind of like Adam Schlesinger's, That Thing You Do kind of feels authentic to the time that he's emulating, but it also still has this weird kind of modern twist on it. The opener, Couldn't Leave You If I Tried, has these great harmonies on it, incredible chord changes into the chorus, really sunshine pop, but it comes with that kind of constant sense of like underlying melancholy and longing to keep it from being too sweet. Only Want to See You Tonight, perfect song, good time, perfect song, just gem after gem, just ear candy. Love it. Gov 3.
All right, number 9 for me, Big Time by Angel Olsen. Also saw this mofo over the summer. Just killer songwriting on this album. Big alt country feel, sounding like just that big classic Nashville sound. Really pleasant and laid back steel guitar and some horns in there. Everything the Grand Ole Opry should be without going overboard with country cliches and motifs. Most of the songs have a really brutal, honest point of view narration to it. This comes at a time in her life where she apparently wrote these songs after she came out as homosexual to her parents and then lost her parents, both of them apparently, shortly after. So didn't really have time to kind of, let all of that sink in and have like a new relationship with a newfound self and all of this stuff. So these songs, I think, kind of deal with that. And generally, it's a very pretty album, dealing with some of that personal sadness, really working well within the genre. The production doesn't go over the deep end, but brings out the life and dynamic and all the subtly crafted parts. To say it in a way, it's kind of a loud, powerful, soft album. All the good times and the song Big Time are a great one, too. Choruses are often really nice and big and expansive and kind of all play like that quieter kind of verse, and then it gets really dramatic into the chorus, which, is a motif and an archetype that works. Songs about breakups like Dream Thing. So there's a really nice level of personal stories. And it's probably just the simplest album she's done. I always found her to be a little bit overhyped and a little bit overrated because I feel like her albums previously to this are really hard to sink into because they're kind of overly complicated at times, but I don't feel that way with this one. She kind of plays to her strength. Everything fits in a nice little box. She knows what the end point of each of like the message of the song is, and she just takes a really simple route to get there, which kind of plays into that more country vibe. She's just being like this simple crooning little cowgirl on this album, and it works. Kind of feels like the album's like this bored, lonesome love letter written to someone who's been away for quite some time. It's not a bad song on it. All the Flowers stands out to me because she's got a really nice soft whisper on it. I don't think she's necessarily an amazing voice or an amazing singer, but I don't think she really tries anything else vocally without abandoning her own songwriting voice. So it works really well. 3 songs for you are All the Good Times, Big Time, and Right Now. 4 stars is my number 9, Big Time by Angel Olsen.
Did we review that on the channel?
Not me. You two.
Yeah, you weren't there. That's right. That's why I wasn't expecting that one. Interesting. All right, here's one people probably aren't expecting. And it too is a double album. And it's from an artist that I just have never been able to get. So usually I don't even listen to his stuff because ignorance is usually better than being like, no, I don't like the most popular, critically acclaimed artist of the generation. But now I do. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Kendrick Lamar, is making my top 10. And I wasn't gonna listen to this one because I didn't want to have to answer like, what happened to Joe? He doesn't like rap anymore. He doesn't like Kendrick Lamar. I knew Cramser would come at me with those exact words, but towards the end of the year, I decided to throw it on, and suddenly it just like grabbed me. I don't know if it's the production that I never liked before. Um, this one is much more personal, so maybe that the lyrics and everything sort of hit me a little harder. And I love the production on this, so maybe I have to go back and listen to his other stuff. It's really big, it's very hectic, and it's chaotic. There's all this stuff going on, but it's really pretty in parts. It's really ugly in parts. We Cry Together is really hard to listen to, but there's just so many cool elements. N95's oozing synth line opens up in this like big chaotic song, and there's just all this stuff going on. It's hard to even keep track of them all. United in Grief has these great in-your-face drums and jazzy, absent-minded piano. So there's a lot of production, a lot of different producers, a lot of different guest stars, but I think it all holds together really well. Some really hooky elements going on, and I've always liked his rapping, but like suddenly for whatever reason on this album it just kind of all comes together, the whole package, the production, the rapping, the personal lyrics. So yeah, I really like this one. Mr. Morale, Big Steppers, my number 8.
You like this one more than Pimp a Butterfly, huh?
Those ones just never, I don't know, I don't like that production style that much, and this one is just, I don't know, more interesting to me.
I haven't listened to the new Kendrick yet, so I'll let you know. Jason, what did you think of the new Kendrick Lamar?
Did not hear it. I heard the couple singles, but whatever. My number 8, my highest placed debut album of the year. I've got All Blue by Juliana Riodino, Little Cosmic Country, Little Laurel Canyon, a good dose of rock in there as well. Definitely, I think some Petty in the mix, maybe some Stones. Her live performances are electric. She's nicknamed the White Hot Lung. She's just got like this attitude and like this brashness that sets her apart from a lot of other female singer-songwriters. Definitely more of a rock and roll edge than others in the genre. This record was produced by Aaron Goldstein, tracked almost completely live back in 2020, beginning of the pandemic is when it was recorded in Toronto. You've got Ian Romano on drums, Dave Nordy, a couple other members of the outfit participating. She just comes out of the womb fully realized, fully formed. She's able to do all sorts of stuff, from like the Wall of Sound, girl group pop of the song Lone Ranger. You got some like honky tonk country on the song Queen of Spades. Some more rocking numbers like You and Why Do I Miss You. And I think she can do all of that without betraying her vision, her sense of self. I think it's a really, really confident debut, and I think the songs are great, and her singing is incredible. So that's my number 8.
All right, my number 8 is one no one saw coming because it did not get a lot of press. Never heard of this act before this year, and really only through Pitchfork. It is an album called Endurer, and the artist is Special Interest. They are labeled as a punk band from New Orleans, and they're really only punk in attitude. They're not like a thrash guitar, ugly, like bar band singing about how much they hate the government. It's nothing really thought about punk otherwise. They're pretty much given like the punk moniker because of how they come at you, but they do it through this old school 90s house music kind of style. It's one of the most interesting things I've heard. You get a female lead singer and female guitarist. Maria Elena is the guitar player, and Ali Logout, I think is how you say the lead singer's name. And the album's just a lot of fun. It's littered with attitude. There's like big pumping club beats, deep bass, and a party-like atmosphere. It's really aggressive, really raunchy, unapologetic. It's got like this coked out, non-kid friendly version of like CC Music Factory and Hadaway going on. It's sort of punk flavored attitude, but done through like this algorithm through like a computer code, but the code has like a virus. It's just like it's nuts and it's off the wall. At the same time, is a really cool chaotic feel. Feels like you're like clothes shopping in hell, like fashionista dance pop that is completely evil. Like the runway models are all devils and ghouls and stuff. A little bit of ghoulish disco in there, and it has this really dense wall of sound. The feel on this album is everything. The song Midnight Legend has some really cool melody to it. Yeah, it's just like one of those, remember those old like late night 90s house music compilation ads that they would show with the scrolling song titles? It sounds like they took one of those and dipped it in the flames of hell and then brought it back on like an acid trip, and like this is what you get. It's totally crazy. It's like Depeche Mode just like really sataned it up and like amped up their evil game. It's so cool. Everything's pumping. There's one song called Interlude that gives you like 1 minute of a breath of fresh air, and that's it. Everything else is just crazy adrenaline rush. Cool. You feel really cool and dirty afterwards. There's a song called Kurdish Radio that is really catchy. Impulse Control is awesome. It starts off with her screaming 86 My Life. It's awesome. It just has these amazing, red hot, totally authentic fire to it. Songs I'm recommending are Midnight Legend, Kurdish Radio, and Impulse Control. 4.5 stars. They have 2 albums before this. I would like to hear them. I would imagine, since they've never gotten much press until this album, that this is the best one, but it was a total surprise and I loved it.
All right, okay, cool. My number 7, I'm going with Raw Data Feel from Everything, which is a band that I always kind of keep an eye on because I think they're interesting, but they never like quite hit a home run for me. There was always just like something a little off. I don't think their hooks ever really became fully formed to the point where my discerning ears would put them in the top 5. But always a band I liked, and I was very happy with Raw Data Feel from this year. They actually got an AI to help write the lyrics, and they fed this AI LinkedIn's terms and conditions, Beowulf, 400,000 posts from the message board 4chan, and the sayings of Confucius, and then they kind of tweaked and compiled like the best lyrics into usable material for the album. And it's got some really weird lyrics, but it's not any weirder than like Tom York stuff and the weirder ends of the indie rock spectrum. But it does have like things that you wouldn't ever hear a human say, which is fun. I'll have a Coke, I'll have a Pepsi now. You are afraid that you're a pizza boy. Just like weird kind of like non sequitur, like flights of whatever. So I like that aspect of it. It's really cool. It's very danceable, which I like. Everything's just really catchy, really dancey. Jonathan Higgs's vocals. He's got that like thick British accent, but then he zooms up into these great falsetto, which is great. And just a lot of things that could have gone wrong, like the bleeps and the bloops. A lot of electronic elements in there, but they wield them successfully and sort of always make sure there's a big triumphant chorus to kind of take you out of like that indie rockdom back into like the dance pop, UK dance pop realm. So I appreciate it, and I'm very glad that they finally hit the home run for me. It required an AI robot named Kevin to do so. That's fine. It's the future of songwriting.
All right. My number 7, from here on out on my list, I've got pretty much Jason Core all the way. These are all, except one, artist that have appeared on my year-end lists in the past, so not a lot of new discoveries. And the one that is new would be a surprise, but I've been talking about it all year long, so I think people probably are aware of that one as well. But anyways, number 7, I've got Loose Future by Courtney Marie Andrews. One of my favorite singer-songwriters. I've been singing her praises as a singer and a songwriter for a long time. I think she's got an incredible voice. But her last 2 records, I think she's really elevated into the ranks of like great record making as well. Her 2020 record with Andrew Sarlo producing, Now this one with another one of my favorite producers, Sam Evian, at the helm. And I think they're kind of different records. Where Old Flowers was kind of sparse and bare, this one's a little bit more lush and vibrant. Not exactly like upbeat or poppy, but it's very ornate and kind of enveloping. Songs like Thinking on You and Change My Mind have these sweeping strings. Let Her Go has some gorgeous soundscape, kind of guitar-y, keyboardy kind of effects underneath the track. And I think the vocal treatments on this record are really welcoming. I think on Old Flowers, her voice was very like upfront, in-centered, in your face, very intimate. And here they're more all-encompassing, a lot of double track stuff, things panned around you, and just a little more produced, I guess you could say. But it works really well. The songwriting is still really, really strong. Yeah, I think she turns out some of her strongest songs to date on this. Tracks like On the Line, Thinking on You, You Can Do What You Want. I think her lyrics are, still improving. I think, she's just really continuing to grow, and I just love her singing. So there you go, number 7.
All right, Courtney Marie Courtney Paranoid Marie Android. Courtney Marie Andrews was one of those artists that I think is very good, but not quite great, just like on that cusp. My number 7 is, like my number 8, an artist that I had no idea about until this year, and it is, we're still in 4.5, by the way. Only my top 2 are going to be 5 stars. It is a self-titled album by Florist by Florist. And this is an act and an album that has a sound that's very pastoral. It's the sound of like a painting by Monet or some French impressionist canvas. It's got a very nice natural touch to it, often fragmented with beautiful instrumentation, just sliding over top some wild caught sounds of trees or crickets or water or what have you. There's literally a song called Duet for Guitar and Rain, which is just guitar and rain. And because of that, it kind of conjures up feelings of Nick Drake, like its gentle and elegant, understated touch. There's a real simplicity to the feeling. The wordplay is by no means mundane, but you know what everything is about as soon as you get into it. The song Redbird Morning Part 2 is fantastic. It's indie folk in the genre, but there's a really warmer, richer production at the base of it. It's got a very pastoral landscape accented by these really deep bass notes, which is a really just simple, nice touch to it. And there's a really good sense of soft melody throughout and catchiness to the shape of the songs and the singing. It's very meditative and soothing. It's one of those albums that's all about sinking into it and getting the feeling and atmosphere, as it basically just alternates between traditional song and little instrumentation interludes, which Joe hates, but I love. I think it's just a really nice picturesque piece of the album. It's just kind of like a big bouquet of a medley of flowers. You get little pieces of several things to make a beautiful collection. The songs that I'm recommending are Red Morning Bird Part 2, River's Bed, and Sci-Fi Science. It's just a really pretty, mostly acoustic, but gorgeous, simple album done really well. Florist by Florist. That's my number 7.
Some interesting picks so far. Graham's is really filling in like that hipster side that I won't touch with the 10-foot pole. Will I bring in like, also hipster stuff, but a little more mainstream hipster, like the stuff Pitchfork likes, but like not like the bands that Pitchfork like uncovers and like what discovers. Ugh, I can't think. The bands that Pitchfork discovers, like those are the ones you like. And I like the mainstream where Pitchfork's trying to be like cool and not too edgy anymore.
The stuff Pitchfork found out about 10 years ago that I liked when they first came out, and now you're getting around.
The artists, yeah, like 10 years ago. Yeah, that's fine. That's cool. My number 6, I got it right here. I got Remember the Magic by Junatime. Just a really great nostalgic 80s retro throwback. So much fun. Chris Sklarb, I hope I'm saying that right, just does a perfect job recreating the sounds of the 80s, the synths, the drums. You got the big reverb filled drums, you got the the perfect little synth sounds and the the Yamaha whatever's, and it just everything sounds exactly like you think it should sound from the 80s. It really works. Heather Summerhauser, aka Junatime, is got a great voice. Her part on Remember the Magic is just amazing. I love her like cadence and the choppiness when she's doing some of those runs. And it's just so much fun. Like it reminds me of like the care that like M83 would put into like recreating the 80s. And like that's what I'm looking for at this point. I thought I was kind of like tired of that, but they do just such a good job on this that it works. Shout out to Vanessa for discovering, her. I don't know how. It was just like a Spotify thing. Just here's the next up. Here's Spotify. Everybody in the well, not everybody, but many of us in the what the hell is it called? Discord liked it a lot. So credit to her. And she also sent me a present. This is from Junatime, and I haven't opened it yet because I didn't want it to influence my ratings and my positions here. But I'm gonna open it after, now that I've gotten this, number 6. She can't get any higher, so open that up.
Very cool. I hope it's a Junatime bobblehead. All right, my number 6, I've got With People by Diane Coffey. And I was a really big fan of the first 2 Diane Coffey records and wasn't crazy about the third record, which was called Internet Arms. Kind of took a synthy 80s inspired pop direction, which so many people were doing around that time a few years ago. And I don't know, it just that his version of it didn't work that well for me. So I was kind of let down by that one. But putting this one on, I was blown away from the first listen. For anyone who doesn't know, Diane Coffey is the former drummer of Foxygen, Sean Fleming. This is his 4th record under the name Diane Coffey. This one was produced by Jonathan Rado and just refocuses like all of their strengths, which is strong melodies, theatrical vocals, great harmonies. Got a lot of 60s influence on this, a lot of like Beach Boys type pop stuff. But you also still have some 80s in places. There's some like big gated drums in a few songs, and you also get some like 70s glam touches here and there as well. Lots of ear candy on this record. You got these like whispered doubled vocals on the opening track. You've got kind of like a Wilbury-esque track called The Great Escape, which is great, and it kind of nicks that Jeff Lynne production style a little bit. You've got this great like jammy solo section on the song Our Love, The Run, which reminds me a little bit of almost like Unknown Mortal Orchestra type of stuff. You got some great strings on the track, Forever You and I. So they're hitting a lot of different styles, and it's really maximalist. There's so much going on and so much to listen to, but at the same time, it's not overdone. Everything in the mix feels necessary. It doesn't feel cluttered or busy. It just really works well. So I really had a lot of fun listening to it. I've listened to it a bunch of times this year. One of the records I've gone back to the most this year. So yeah, Diane Coffey.
Will Jason name a band before this top 10 is over? Is it all singer-songwriters? We'll see. My number 6, Wet Leg by Wet Leg. Really cool, clever British indie rock female duo. Great songs. Each one is very much its own anthem. Nothing bleeds together as you're going through. There's this odd duck childishness to it that's really cool, but pretty rockin' overall. Big hooks with simple guitar parts. Not doing anything crazy sonically, but kind of the juxtaposition of like the energy of the band mixed with like these really like disinterested lyrics full of malaise, like uninterested, like in the song Angelica, but I don't want to follow you on the gram. I don't want to listen to your band. I don't know why I haven't left yet. Don't want none of this. Very cool. And these really hip like references in other songs like Wet Dream, like You Want to Come Home With Me. I've got Bubble of 66 on DVD and stuff like that. It works in this kind of like nonchalant charm where they're really well aware of what they're doing. The lead singer, Ryan Teasdale, I think is her name, is a very pretty robotic inflection. Chase Long and Angelica are among the best songs of the year. Really great drumming on it. The intensity and patterns are always changing, and it really gives each song quite a dynamic. Like it just goes a bar or two before the entire drumming changes. Feels like the picture is still being painted as you listen. And there's a bit of poshness to it too, which I like. Even the song Wet Dream has some major dance vibes. The bass really digs in on this album. It almost has like an early 2000s dance rock vibe at times, someone like The Bravery or Franz Ferdinand, stuff like that. Great lyrics everywhere, unknowingly topical, done in very first person and relatable way. Makes you feel like you're part of their party scene and seeing all these things right in front of their eyes. It's got like those old school girl hipster kind of vibes. Three songs that I'm going to recommend are Angelica, Loving You, and Chase Long. Very awesome. Wet Leg by Wet Leg, which has been on a lot of lists.
Oh yeah, that one. Ooh, Hipster's Wet Dream right there. Of all the albums you guys have named so far, 1 4-star out of all of them. So not great, guys. Come on, pick it up. Pick it up a little bit. It was the Diane Coffee, which I enjoyed a lot. My number 5 is a band. I mean, talk about a hipster's dream. I got Jockstrap, self-titled debut. This one, man, another one I wasn't gonna listen to because I thought the name Jockstrap is just such a dumb name for a band. Come on, it's like they're trying to get me to not listen to them, but I didn't. No, I listened and I loved Georgia Ellery, who's in Black Country New Road, hopefully the new singer there, because damn, does she got a great voice. She's the lead singer here with Tyler Sky, who does the production, and he's doing all this kind of like trip hoppy, Massive Attack, electronic stuff, and she's like bringing in this folky, she plays the violin. He's got a beautiful soaring voice, and it's just like this squashing together of genres that really could have gone like wildly wrong, but they're super talented, man. Georgia Ellery's vocals on Neon and Greatest Hits, which is one of my favorite songs of the year, are just incredible. She really lets loose. She does a really cool like folky stuff on Concrete Over Water in Glasgow, which starts off with like this really cool like music box sounding thing. And it's just one of those albums that I shouldn't like. Like it kind of goes against like all of the things I normally like, but I don't know. Together, whatever they did here, totally unique and interesting. And it's got enough of like the huge hooks and the big choruses and like the perfect vocals that I like it. I like it a lot. And this is my first 4.5-star album of the year. So really, really fell for Jockstrap.
All right. My number 5 is the Michael Ralt Band. No, it's just Michael Ralt. We had him on to discuss obscure 70s songs. And yeah, there he is again. That was 100% the perfect topic for him to discuss because this record feels like an obscure 70s gem. There's a little bit of everything that the decade had to offer on it. There's some Baroque pop, some yacht rock, some touches of disco and R&B, whatever weird stuff the Beach Boys were doing in the 70s. It's all on this record. The studio prowess on display here is impeccable. He nails every single sound that he goes for. However, I think that the real miraculous thing on this record is his ability to sound exactly like his influences without sounding like a tribute act. And I think a lot of that comes down to his vocals. He's got a really unique voice, little nasally, little high-pitched voice. It doesn't really sound like any singer from the 70s. So you've got this like dead-on, dead-ringer 70s backing track with him doing this more modern-sounding vocal delivery. And I think it works really well, keeps it from being, a little bit too much of a ripoff or too copycatish. I just think that the combination of those things works really well. And it kind of does. It feels like, like a Rodriguez or a Big Star or a Nick Drake or these kind of artists that weren't appreciated in their times. And then you get to discover them. And even though he's not actually from them, that's what listening to this record feels like. It's like, oh, this is this great record from the 70s that no one really knew about until now. So yeah, I just really like it a lot. Had a lot of fun listening to it. Glad he came on the show. It was a lot of fun talking to him. So yeah, check it out if you haven't yet.
All right. My number 5 is a previous album of the year winner for me. I've got Zola Jesus with Archon, back at it with her big anthemic, saturated goth tech kind of sound. There's a real modern, digital, and new age apocalyptic quality with real steamy sexual elements, almost like a really dainty industrial kind of vibe. There's a lot of feel and bounce and interesting percussive elements on here. Almost a tribal kind of beat on the opening song Lost, which is outstanding. And I always love her reverb soaked vocals. She sings like she's falling down from the sky. It's great. And it's just everything, including her other albums, has such an epic quality. It's really dense and gripping sound that you can't help but get swept off your feet and get lost in it. The drums on here are pounding, but then her voice like holds your hand and guides you through the songs. But there's like this darkness everywhere and just overcomes you. The song The Fall has a really cool pop feel to it. It's got a catchy little low end piano part and a big release into the chorus. So she's got like an experimental pop kind of structure to most of her stuff. But everything is so cosmic and cryptic. Everything is black and wide open, but cavernous at the same time. It feels like it's totally black, but you're getting flashes of strobe light. It's very cool. But then the thing that sets this one apart from her other stuff is it's got more of a live band feel at times. The drums on the song Sewn are amazing. Lyrically, things are a lot less personal than previously. Nina, the lead singer, is taking on much more of like a global consciousness and contributing her thoughts on like humanity and crisis. But there's still just at the heart this cool, seedy, underground, drugged out, sexy club pop element to it. And she's sort of always the anti-hero where she sees the light but can't help but sink into the dark. And she's just got amazing, powerful vocals and a great mix, like on Dead and Gone. I know it sounds like this is like a really desolate and dark album, but it's also really lively and passionate and just makes for a really pleasant experience. So songs I'm throwing at you are Lost, Dead and Gone, and Ephemera. And 4.5 stars. My number 5, Archon by Zola Jesus.
Probably Archon. Number 4 for me, betraying myself again, talking about how I didn't like double albums. Well, here's another one. I got pretty much everyone else's number 1 album of the year. I'm a sucker for it. Renaissance, Beyonce. It's been a while since Beyonce made my list. I believe 2011, before she was in my top 5. And I think this is her masterpiece. I think this is the point where it's like a greatest hits collection, but it's not even like her greatest hits. It's like the greatest hits of R&B, pop, dance, funk, like just everything she touches on. It's 16 tracks. Maybe it's only a single album. Is it only a single album? It's 62 minutes. It feels like a double. It's a lot of, I don't know. I don't know how they count doubles and singles anymore. In the 70s, it would be a quadruple album. But it's just loaded. It's a tour de force of Beyonce. You know, she's still doing her very personal, you know, very sexual. You know, there's nothing's off limits for her. It's very open and honest, which is great. And the production, you know, she brings in Tricky and Skrillex and, you know, 1,000 other people, Honey Dijon, Mike Dean, just a million different people. And, you know, each song really kind of has its own unique place in like the pop sphere, in the R&B sphere. And she kind of just works her way through it. It's great. She nails just every sound right in the middle. Cut Fit Energy, Break My Soul, Church Girl, Plastic Off the Sofa, Virgo's Groove. It's just incredible. It's a greatest hits. It's probably like 5 out of my 7 favorite Beyonce songs of all time, right in a row. And she did it. I'm not the biggest Lemonade guy. I thought her self-titled was, you know, it was raunchy and kind of, you know, oh, Beyonce's dropping F-bombs and talking about banging Jay-Z. But this puts it all together. This is the rainbow of Beyonce right here. Renaissance. My number 4.
Pitchforks, number 1. I'd like to point out that everything Joe has picked so far on his list, other than Michael Ralt and the Beths, has been in Pitchfork's top 50 albums so far this year.
No, the best was in the top 50.
Oh, So yeah,
So Gina Time and Michael Rolt so far the only two.
maybe you love Pitchfork, Joe, and you just don't want to admit it.
I do. I
It's
love
amazing
them.
what happens when you listen to a lot of music. My number 4, this is where I go up to 5 stars. I only had 2 5 stars for a large portion of the year, but I bumped 2 records up recently. My number 4 is the self-titled record by Prince, Daddy, and the Hyena. One of the biggest surprises of all time, maybe? I don't know. But I've been talking about it all year, so people are aware probably by now. But yeah, me liking an emo album this much, definitely a shocker. It just has some of the best like modern rock production that I've ever heard. The kick drum hits you right in the chest. The guitars are huge. The vocals cut through perfectly. It sounds amazing. It sounds massive. I think the songs are just like endlessly tuneful. It's really, I think, pretty close to like pop punk, and there's like some power pop elements in there, even though it's kind of like dressed up as emo. And musically, I think it's very exciting too. I think they keep the listener on the edge of their seat the entire time. The fills and the solos are always kind of like unexpected and jumping out at you around corners. And the solo on Hollow as You Figured is just incredible. Most of the songs have some kind of like unexpected twist at some point, like the song Keep Up That Talk, I think, is a prime example. There's that like section at the end where things are like kind of like cut and choppy and diced up and like skittering along. Really, really like modern touches on rock production. I just think it's a super, super fun listen. The songs are great. And I think the mix just absolutely slams. It's one of the best mixed records that I've ever heard in my life. It just sounds so good. So Prince Daddy, number 4.
Honestly, I'd like to do like a whole interview with Jason about this album and like what did you hear it, Cramser? Like it's you would think he would give it a 1 star. You listen to the first song or the second song and you bust in with like this really emo vocal and you were like, no, Jason, 1 star for Jason. Like it completely turned my world upside down. You got to listen to it.
He's all about production, and it could be a turd, but if he likes the polish on it, he's like, pretty cool. All right.
It rolls. It's so good. I think Cram would like it a lot, actually.
There's usually like one like kind of emo-ish album a year that I like, but I'm not about to talk about that. Jason said this was an album that climbed for him at the end of the year. I had the opposite problem this year where there are some albums that I nicked down, including this one, which I originally had at 5 stars, but at 4.5, I've got Palomino by First Aid Kit. Great big pop songs, country singer songwriter kind of vibe with a Stevie Nicks 80s kind of influence. There's a danceable poppiness to it that I like, but I think at the core, the songs are just very, very good. And there's a really grand production behind it, but in the front is still this singing. So I kind of like this massive wall behind like the mic, which is kind of, what this album's all about. So it just sounds like a really big arena singer-songwriter album. And I think that gives it a really great dynamic. The lyrics are really anthemic, maybe a bit basic at times, but that makes it really reachable with a ton of great melodies and hooks that play into the rhythm really well. And the rhythm and the drums and the beats are really what make this album go. It's a lot of fun. It's very pretty. It's lush. There's a ton of Americana behind it, but it's kind of just like a charming pop album too. Like I said, the beats are the unsung hero. Just gets your blood pumping. There's classic rock kind of charm to it, but it also, like my album of the year last year, The War on Drugs, We Don't Live Here Anymore, has this very cathartic emotion to it. It's like just really majestic, like driving down the road without a care in the world and a convertible kind of feel, which I really like. The songs are just really big and sweeping. The messages are kind of cozy. Out of My Head, the first song is awesome and big with a huge dance beat that it gets into. Angel, I love the horns at the end of that. Everything is really dramatic, and I like that. It's very sweet, very powerful. Ready to Run has that really nice, easy driving kind of folk energy. And it ends really strong. I think it's one of the best ending albums of the year with 29 Palms Hallway and Palomino. Palomino, especially with that sparse guitar. goes through the first stanza without the bass, and then the bass comes in perfectly the second go around. Yeah, just the perfect amount of Twain and Americana and pop blend. And I really like that kind of Stevie Nicks 80s kind of vibe to it that I was talking about, full of melody and beat. Songs I'm throwing out are Out of My Head, Nobody Knows, and Palomino. Originally had it at 5 stars, came down to a little bit, 4.5, but still good enough for the 4th best album of the year as far as I'm concerned.
All right, we're into the top 3 now. And these two are battling it out. I don't know exactly what to put second and third. I guess it's tough because when you hear an album early in the year and you just listen the hell out of it, like you just grind it into your memory. At the end of the year, you're like, well, the surprise is kind of gone a little bit, and it never quite sounds as good as it did the first time. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to put Impera by Ghost at number 3. And I still love it. It's still 4.5 stars. It's real close as my favorite Ghost album. Meliorum might still be number 1, but this one, you can't deny the fun, the bigness. You know, this band makes worshiping Satan fun, and they do it so well. On this, they bring in Friedrich Achesen from Opeth to run some guitar lines. He does a great job filling it out. Some throwbacks to 80s hair metal, 70s, Blue Oyster Cult. And it's just a really big, fun, there's some like ABBA throwback. They are Swedish after all. On Spillways, you got the little riff in the intro. And it's just, what separates Ghost and most metal bands is I feel like Ghost knows how to have fun with what they're talking about, and it's kind of a silly subject. And they just have so much fun. The hooks are so big, the guitars are like, maximized for like that arena rock late 80s sound, like 1987 just comes screaming through the speakers on something like Watch in the Sky. So I love it. It could go back to number 2 at some point, but I did listen to it a lot. I mean, I'm talking 10, 20 times, probably 30 times throughout the year. So the surprise, it leaves you a little bit at the end. So it slips to 3, but still a great album.
It is easily the most Joe sounding album of the year, I would say. And I think I gave it 2.5 or 3 stars. I was pretty disappointed. I like Ghost, but I found it too cheesy for my Ghost taste.
A lot of people have said that. It's kind of the direction they were headed, though.
It's a little goofy, to be honest, at times.
So Cram predicted that would be Joe's number 2. And I predicted another record, which he has not mentioned yet. So I think I got it right. But we will see. My number 3 is Misadventures of Doom Scroller by Dawes. And I know I'm seen as this like big Dawes stan, and here comes Jason with another Dawes record. But the fact of the matter is that I have not had their last 3 records in my top 10 at all. And I have cooled on them considerably for a while. I thought they were still making decent records, but far from great and far from their peak material. 2020's record, Good Luck with Whatever, I thought was an improvement, but I thought it was kind of safe. But here they're taking some big swings, and I think it pays off big time. They're really, really stretching out musically here, letting their ability as players take over a lot more, getting a little jammy, in fact. You've got some really long tracks. You got 9.5 minutes, 5.5 minutes, 8:43, 6:19, 5:24, 9:01. The only short thing is like one little interlude between tracks, but everything else is stretched out. They're playing their asses off, jamming, incredible drumming, incredible guitar solos, intricate arrangements, really cool song structures coming in and out of different parts. I think it's great that they're able to finally show what monster players they are, because live they've always been incredible. They're pulling in all kinds of influences that they've probably had all along, but never really showed them as much. You can hear a lot of Steely Dan on this, Santana. You can hear a little bit of like heavier stuff like Sabbath, A couple years ago, they actually played some festivals where they played Paranoid in its entirety. And I think some of that kind of like getting on stage and rocking out and jamming, I think rubbed off a little and led and went into the studio with them. So yeah, I just think musically it's great. And I think, you know, the writing definitely does take a back seat here to the musicianship. Most of their records are like songwriting records, and this one is more about playing. But I think the songs are still good. I think the lyrics are good. I've heard some people kind of poo-poo the lyrics a bit, Joe, but I think the lyrics are still really sharp. I think they're good. I think Taylor is a great lyricist, and you know, I just think it's a really good, solid all-around record. I love the playing on it. So number 3, 5 stars for Dawes.
All right. My number 3, 4.5 stars. Damn close to 5. Ooh, maybe in a bit. Being Funny in a Foreign Language by the 1975. Surprise, it's lyrically brilliant. I think Matt Healy's lyrics are among the best going right now. He's constantly making fun of the young generation, and they're like, a lot of the ones he's picking out are not smart enough to know that they're being made fun of. They think they're being lauded, and they're not. They often open their albums with a song called the 1975, and here are some of the lyrics from this one. This will get bigger, if you know what I mean. And I'm sorry if you're living and you're 17. I've heard it's in vogue to be super thin, but your friends aren't thick, so they can't come in. I'm feeling apathetic, scrolling through hell. I think I've got a boner, but I can't really tell. And then the pre-chorus is, it's cynical, this Adderall and vitriol and young people drinking Aperol. I love it. He finds the world so annoying, and they just mark the headspace of the younger, like computerized digital generation better than anything going right now. It's the music reflects it too. It's like ADHD and hyperactive and mood swinging and free prose and just like ideas that don't end and never kind of like come back to the original idea and stuff. It's just the perfect mark of, you know, kind of the social environment. And you get a lot of different sonic palettes, but at the core, it's got that posh, yuppie sounding 80s-ness. The song Happiness has that sound to a T, and it's great. Big rubbery bass jumping about with soft, sensual vocals. The sax on this album coming in is really nice. It's everything you want from the 1975. If there's anything bad I can say it, I think that there are very few surprises on this album. It's very much just like 1975 by numbers, but their numbers are pretty complicated and very much their own, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. And, you know, they're young, but they're already settled in their sound, and it's not a huge complaint. Matt Healy is just a brilliant mocker, satirist, while still being able to convey his philosophy. And I just love the way he sings. He's overly cute to the point that you know he's making a point of it. And the band underneath them doesn't get enough credit. It's pretty hot, very underrated for a pop act. Like, they always have really like Peter Gabriel-esque drums and bass and percussion stuff going on, and sax coming in, full of schmaltz and excess, just like you want, binging the hot sounds of the 80s like I'm a song looking for somebody to love. They're really underrated hook writers on this album, really cocky and joyful and obnoxious. You know, their posture kind of feels like every 80s like teen heartthrob times a million with like a better cool factor, like the Coreys and the Ralph Macchios, just like winking and being like cool as hell for everyone at the mall. That's what Matt Healy is. I can't believe some of these songs don't just wreck the pop charts, but fucking Jack Harlow going like, you feel it? Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, this is number one. I'm like, get the hell out of here. You even get like some really cool, like Bruce Hornsby type of piano sounds on the song Oh Caroline. I'm in Love with You is a really nice and smooth song, even though it's kind of rehashing some of their earlier work and songs from the past. And you get a nice somber note right in the middle to bring all this youthful circus down to earth. And the song All I Need to Hear, just gorgeous. Second half is just as good. Wintering's a really good song. The slower jam, Human 2, is a nice little downbeat R&B pop kind of gem. About You is really nice at the end and carries momentum to finish it off. Throwing out the songs Looking for Somebody to Love, Oh Caroline, and All I Need to Hear, very close to 5 stars. I think pretty much all of their albums I've given 4.5 to. They just can't get to 5. It's very weird, but I love this act. They're one of my favorite artists of the last 10 years. Number 3, Being Funny in a Foreign Language by the 1975.
It's ironic that Jason had Doom Scroller and you had that one right after each other. because they're both not very good lyrically.
I hated that 1975. It'll be one of my dishonorable mentions coming up.
I can see both like sides. I like Dawes and I like some tracks off the 1975 one, but I don't like you know who on the boards doing the production. My enemy.
You have a lot of enemy. Who's talking?
My specific hated producer, Jackie Boy. My number two, I gotta stop hanging out in the Discord so much because Jason's on to me. I got the car from the Arctic Monkeys. Or sorry, Arctic Monkeys. It's not. There's no the there. It's just Arctic Monkeys. The car from Arctic Monkeys. Another band that I mean I like. They've never made my top 10, I don't think, in any year. I always thought they were a little overrated, a little, you know, UK music press hype over substance. But again, on the car, they kind of win me over by changing their sound. And it's a risky one. It's it's like Genesis going pop in the 80s. Turner's adopting like this really like seductive, luxurious croon. And the band is, it's very smooth. It's none of that like jittery stuff that they were doing on their early records. I think you look at the dance floor, kind of, it's completely 2000 degrees different than all that. And it's more my style this way. Almost every song is just covered in this lush orchestration and it's constantly changing. It's like they have like a completely different orchestra for like each one of these songs. There's some classic like Philly soul stuff, like Curtis Mayfield. There's like the classical Hollywood big band orchestration. There's like a Hans Zimmer a bit coming through in Sculptures of Anything Goes, where it's this big like like something out of Inception or something like that, and it just sounds so good. Some of the orchestration was handled by Bridget Samuels, who had a hand in Midsommar and Green Knight. So they really went and got a really skilled person to do it. The 17-piece string section. The lyrics are great. Turner's got that croon going, luxurious falsetto. It's a little obtuse. A lot of things ending. I don't know if like this is their final record together, which would be a shame because I really like the direction. And despite like all the other stuff, the croon and the orchestration, the band is really hot on this. I gotta say, the drums, Matt Helder's on drums. He's got this really like cold snap going on There Better Be a Mirror Ball. There's some really cool wah guitar, great organ. The bass is great. Like the players, dynamite performances all around. You kind of lose them a little bit in the orchestration, but if you really kind of sit down and listen, their playing is fantastic. And Turner's croon's great. His lyrics are fantastic. Really kind of smarmy at times, but also sad. And I don't know if it's like heartbroken or what, but everything's kind of ending and like moving on to the next thing. They don't really know what to do. So I really dug it. Surprise, another big surprise, 4.5 stars. Not quite 5. I'll save 5 for my number 1. But 4.5 for The Car from Arctic Monkeys.
I did not get around to that one, and because Arctic Monkeys always let me down. Like, I don't think they're bad, but I think they're so overhyped. So I'm just like, another Arctic Monkeys release. This is the first year. I'm like, I don't care now. Like, you kind of feel the same way, Jason, or what?
No, I like that record. At first, I only give it a 3.5, but I bumped it up this week to 4. Yeah, it's a pretty good record. So that's the fun thing about the year lists, especially at the end, is going back through and finding those records that you kind of undervalued at first, and there's always one or two that really rises here at the end. And this one went from outside of my top 10, somewhere between 10 and 20, all the way up to number 2, and got the bump to 5 stars. I've got This Is a Photograph by Kevin Morby, my 2019 Album of the Year winner. For me, one of the strongest lyrical albums of the year. I think he's just a great lyricist. He's been a great lyricist for a while now. He had an album in 2020 as well, Sundowner, which I thought was decent. But I think he's back to top oh my god form on this record. The emotional depth of his lyrics is just what really gets me. And he does it without being like overly wordy or overly clever. He just finds like great, simple ways of getting to the heart of whatever he's singing about. The title track here, This Is a Photograph. I think it's so funny because it's such a juxtaposition to the Nickelback song Photograph. Like, I feel like this song, This Is a Photograph, is what Chad Kroeger maybe in his wildest dreams could ever hope to do with that kind of lyrical concept, like looking at a photograph. And Morby is able to get to like something profound about life and family and gratitude, and skips over all of this like cheap nostalgia that Chad Kroeger does. So it's just kind of funny to compare the two songs and see just like how much better Kevin is. His way of like repeating lines and words throughout songs kind of like turns them into mantras. There's like an almost hypnotic quality to a lot of his music. Again, a lot of very simple things, very simple songwriting, but always like there's always some kind of like touch to it that elevates it, whether it's like a saxophone or background singers that come in. He takes these very simple tunes and simple melodies, and a lot of times he's just almost speak singing, but he always finds a way to make it really interesting sonically as well without doing a ton. Like it's all very simple stuff. Stop Before I Cry, for me, the album Showstopper. It's a love song dedicated to his significant other, Katie Crutchfield, who is Waxahachie. Coat of Butterflies is another stunning track. He's referencing Jeff Buckley a lot in the song. He also has the line in there that says, I feel like Valens on a Cessna flying through the fog. Just really cool stuff. Interesting imagery. His words, I think, hold a lot of emotion in them. One of those records listening to like puts a lump in your throat, but it's just like the power of rock and roll, I feel like, coming through in his music. I think it's really awesome. Kind of got like that little bit of a beat poet type of thing going on, a little bit like Lou Reed, those kind of guys, Dylan, Leonard Cohen, all those kind of poet rocker type of characters, and Kevin Morby killing it.
Nice. All right. 5 stars. Number 2 pick. Just 2 5 stars this year. I had 4 last year. Animal Collective with Time Skips. They have won previously twice for me in 05 and 09, but they have a lot of 5-star albums. And this one, all of those adjectives you love to throw out at Animal Collective. But this one is a lot more relaxed. It's very cool. It's ambient, full of crazy electronica circus, pop songs from outer space done by aliens on an acid trip. Best way to describe them, I think. I don't know. But this one throws back some moments and feelings from Merryweather and Feels and Strawberry Jam. It's very colorful as always, has a choral and oceanic kind of sensation. Sometimes I get music in colors. And this one kind of just feels, like ocean, like you're in a coral reef or something to it. Overall, it's like a very leisurely album for them. There's a coolness to it. Not to say it's low energy, but it's not as crazy or bombastic. There's a light turbulence to it. The vocals are quite lush. And the big difference here is it doesn't have that pumping clash of vocals between everyone kind of taking their turn. This one is just more kind of straightforward, it gives it more of just like a storyteller campfire kind of feel almost. Feel, not sonic texture. Really pretty and still and kind of flat while also fluttering. Like it's their most stable album, I'd say. The vocal melodies and harmonies are like very CSNY and Beach Boys-esque, put through like a postmodern blender, and the slusher you get at the end is great. Has a little bit of that 60s bliss pop kind of feel, almost Christmassy at times with like bells and chimes and stuff like that. Still full of hooks, great escapism. Album works, blends kind of like an old screensaver where it's like hypnotic and morphing gently into something as it goes and never stops moving. Even when the songs end, you kind of feel like they're still going on somewhere. And it's something that old Animal Collective fans would love. It's trippy, gorgeous, peculiar, full of great vocal hooks, but also probably they're more accessible to someone who doesn't know them. Just a bit more chilled out It's not something unfamiliar for Animal Collective fans, just kind of a new maturity and easiness to it. Like you're underwater with rainbows everywhere. It's very cool. Still really powerful and crazy and weird, and I love it. Prester John, Dragon Slayer, and Royal Desire are the ones that I'm throwing out. 5 stars.
The worst was a very easy one for me. One of the most annoying albums I've ever heard. Country Stuff, the album by Walker Hayes. And it's just like the lowest of the low bro country. It literally makes like Florida Georgia Line seem like studied and like reasonable and measured in their lyricism. Like this takes every single cliche that has already been turned into a cliche by the other bro country bands, and like it doesn't even like try and play off them. It just like recycles the cliche in a more annoying way. And like it was one of those albums where I couldn't believe some of the lyrics that I was hearing, because I mean, God, it blew me away in its awfulness. It makes Nickelback look just awesome in comparison. This is a 0.5 for me. And I mean, this is the guy, if you don't know, it's the Applebee's Fancy dude. Like, have you not heard that one? Fancy like. And I mean, here, I'll just say some of the lyrics real quick. My girl's banging, she's solo maintenance. She need no champagne poppin' entertainment. Take her to Wendy's, can't keep her off me. She want to dip me like them fries in her frosty. Like that's the level of lyrics that we're dealing. Like Chad Kroeger wouldn't even stoop to those levels. So yeah, we fancy like Applebee's on a date night. Got that Bourbon Street steak with the Oreo shake. It's like he was like, I want to be rich. I'm going to make a song that Applebee's has to use in their commercials. And I'm just going to like start naming things off the menu. And like, it's genius in how horrible and like insidious it is. So like he's name dropping like Teslas and Vespas and like the sexual like double entendres and innuendos are just like the lamest shit you've ever heard in your life. It's magnificently bad. And but he's not kidding. Like that's the problem. Like he's 100% serious about all of it, and it makes me sick to my stomach. So it's my number one.
All right, so my least favorite record that I heard this year was the Nickelback record that Joe and I reviewed. I gave it 1 star. I thought it totally sucked. I had heard Fancy Like, so I knew not to listen to the entire Walker Hayes record. I sidestepped a lot of that, even below Nickelback level trash. And even the Nickelback I wouldn't have listened to unless we were going to review it for the channel. My least favorite records that I listened to willingly, thinking I might potentially like them, were Chick Chick Chick, Let It Be Blue. I thought that sucked. Also, the 1975 record that Graham put in his list, I thought it was horrific. I like some older 1975 tracks. I like some of their songs. I thought the lyrics on this were preposterously bad. And then the other one is The Zealot Gene by Jethro Tull. Every year there's like one classic rock band that comes back and all the old timers talk it up like a big return to form, but it sucks. Compared to the classic Tull, it's just not even close. So those would be my dishonorable mentions.
So I had a lot of poor records, like in the 2-star range in like the rock genre, but the things that really Nickelback I have sub 2 stars, but everything else was just such a terrible year for pop, like the Demi Lovato record and stuff. I've got sub 2 stars, but the one that takes the cake is Jack Harlow, Come Home, the Kids Miss You. This guy is utter garbage, and he's just like, his music is not interesting. And all he does is go like, yeah, and he's like too cool for school. He won't even finish pronouncing the words he starts. Like there's a point where he says good luck. He's like, good luck. And it's just like, just finish saying the word luck, dude. It's not gonna take any more, effort. He's always like high and chill and mid tempo, and there's no melody or character to anything. It's just really lazy, and he's just like, I don't know. He's not like a great looking dude. He doesn't have a great voice. Like, why is this guy getting to sing over just like these lame, just hip hop tracks that anyone could produce in 5 minutes before they finish their bottle of Code Red next to him as they play fucking World of Warcraft or whatever these idiots are doing? There's literally a song in here where he's talking about how like it took him 5 years to start drinking and 9 more years to stop. It's like, dude, you're 24. It didn't take you 9 years to stop drinking. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You are such a tool. I can't stand this guy. My favorite internet clip of the year is when he's doing his song First Class, and I think at the Ohio State game, and no one gives a shit. And he's just sitting there going, can you feel it now? Yeah, and he's not even singing. Like, he's just letting the sample doing everything, and he's not dancing or anything. And it's like, why is this guy popular? Why is this album selling? It is the worst thing. And I didn't give anything 1 star last year. I don't think. I think I bottomed out at 1.5. This is like, to me, worst album of all time tournament kind of entry. I was so offended by this. I hate this man. That's that.
His music sucks, but he was a great SNL host. Best of the season so far. Did you see it?
Season? Come on, man.
I also hated that album. That was 1.5 stars. Well, you guys did a bunch, but Disturbed also had a bad album. And as far as like classic rockers, I thought Def Leppard's Diamond Star Halos was the bottom of my totem pole. I didn't love the Jethro Tull. There's plenty of older bands putting out crummy records. Well, we all know what my number one is. Right here. Always. Blue Rev. Waited 5 years for this record, and each surpassing year brought more pressure in my mind. Like, God, when they release this album, it needs to be like the best album of all time, or it's going to be a disappointment. And somehow, like, it didn't disappoint me at all. It was one of those listens where you're just listening through and like, okay, this is a good song, okay, great song, and you're getting through the whole thing. It's 14 tracks, and you're just like praying that there's like no duds, like there's no song that like takes you out of it, that makes you think like, what were they thinking here? No car crashes here. It's just hit after hit after just perfect dreamy pop. I think they add some new elements here. Molly Rankin and Alec O'Hanley, the two main songwriters, they're throwing in like a little bit of the Smiths. He does a really cool stuff with the whammy bar that I noticed when I was watching them on the KEXP. Like, on almost like every chord, he's doing some stuff with the whammy bar, kind of giving that wavery effect. Does a lot of those like double stop, higher up runs like Johnny Marr does on After the Earthquake and Pressed. You have a song like Belinda Says, which, just perfect. Lyrically, it's so pretty. Just a lump in your throat kind of thing. And it's like, I looked up what a Blue Rev was. I didn't know. It's like a Four Loko. And this album's very much like that. Things just kind of race by. Nothing's over 4 minutes. But, Molly Rankin, I love her voice so much. And it just does so much. She's up and down. And she can kind of do, distant and like detached, but also like really warm. And, on Belinda Says, just like so personal and, tear jerking. For me, it's a perfect album. It's 5 stars. My first 5 stars since 2019. It's probably my favorite album since the 2000s, to be honest. I've listened to it 20, 30 times, and it doesn't dip in quality for me. It's just everything I wanted. It's fast and fun and beautiful, and just they nailed it. They hit it out of the park. I was so happy. I did not want to be disappointed again, but I was not. So Blue Rev, 5 stars, always.
All right, no surprise there. My number one, Also not a surprise, shouldn't be to anybody. It is Dragon, New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You by Big Thief, a runaway winner, a complete and total triumph from, I think, the best band going right now. Got Adrian Lenker and Buck Meek, both incredible songwriters. Buck's an incredible guitar player. The rhythm section's amazing. James, the drummer, now, proving to be a very skilled producer as well. You've got Matt Davison, aka Twain, providing some instrumentation and backing vocals here. Sam Evian, Hannah Cohen, Scott McMicken, Andrew Sarlo, Sean Everett. Everybody in this band's orbit is just like the best at what they do. This record is sprawling, all-encompassing, completely masterful, from gorgeous folk to wild sonic experiments to like country hoedowns, to rock, to dream pop bordering on shoegaze. They do it all at a very high level. And the way all of these tracks come together, it doesn't feel scattered, doesn't feel unfocused at all. It feels like a band intensely focused, actually, and at a creative pinnacle with ideas just pouring out of them. I think this record can comfortably join the ranks of the best double albums of all time, and I think it is the best album of 2022. I never really considered anything else over the past month or so. This was slam dunk, just a ton of songs, and they're all amazing. So, number one, Big Thief.
All right. Apropos that I went last because you guys are always in the Discord and talking about your favorite stuff. So neither of those were a big surprise. And mine really shouldn't be a surprise either. I have not talked yet about Black Country New Road because it's not in my top 10. It was 4.5 stars and it fell to 4. But my favorite album of 2022 is The Smile, a light for attracting attention. How could it not be? It's the project where Tom York and Johnny Greenwood have complete helm, and finally a Radiohead side project that lives up to what it should be. Atoms for Peace, Tom York solo stuff, Johnny's solo stuff, they've all done solo stuff now, it seems like, except Colin. Or maybe he has, and we just haven't heard about it. But this one is really, really awesome. It's got that classic Radiohead feeling, dynamic, perfect blend of art rock and electronica and a little bit of prog elements. Tom sounds great. There's an eeriness on this album that only Tom and Johnny maintain from that Radiohead, like sci-fi blend of philosophy and poetry. The keys and the synth loops and the leads in the song The Same are simultaneously gorgeous and lush and full of anxiety and paranoia. It feels like a glimpse into the future feelings of dread everyone will have. The song The Opposite has some really cool guitar work by Johnny, making you feel crazy, while Tom and the percussion are really bouncing around with these like kind of Afro beats. So it's lively, energetic, but they always find this soulful way to convey what they want to, with all this really weird instrumentation going on and polyrhythms and circular patterns going on. Everything comes at you in that whirlwind circular style, like you're looking into a kaleidoscope and getting hypnotized with the trippiness of it. You'll Never Work in Television Again, a great song, and some colder, harder punk vibes that kind of harken back to Hail to the Thief a little bit. And man, on this album, Tom sounds 20, 30 years younger on times, like in the song Panavision, which is like a classic, eerie, haunting piano ballad. Johnny's influence on this album is so big. He's such a genius. Everything that he creates has that weird, like, not what it seems quality to it. Very Kubrickian, or Paul Thomas Anderson, who's kind of the more modern Kubrick of our time. The groove and falsetto on the song The Smoke are just on point. And they do that haunting melancholy style so well, especially in the song Speech Bubbles, with terrific guitar part and wonderful string swells. Thin Thing is a really cool and hot song. Open the Floodgates has those classic Radiohead sci-fi bubble keys, reminiscent of like the B-sides for Amnesiac. Great piano tune there. Free and Knowledge is beautiful. A Hairdryer has this frantic mind energy to it. I love the synth lead on Waving a White Flag. So, it has a whole album feel to it, but then every song has these moments that just get stuck in your head and you just want to listen to every song again as soon as you hear it, because they're just such great composers. That's something that gets lost, I think, a lot with new artists. You have to compose a song. Simply put, it has to be good on paper and good here, and they're able to put it good on paper and then bring in all of this weirdness and all their, authentic artistry on top of it. And the greatness of it with Tom and Johnny at the helm, is the beauty of Radiohead is you can feel like you're losing your mind and finding yourself at the same time. Like everything's just kind of an epiphany to it. And you feel that way with like all these beautiful moments on this album, man. It was just what I wanted. It was very hush hush about this album. I don't go in the Discord a lot, but a lot of people are like, "Hey, what do you think of the Smile?" And I'm just like, "Oh," because I wanted it to be a surprise. But obviously, you know me, it's gonna be 5 stars. It's awesome. It's basically a Radiohead album, almost. I don't want to, sell out the other three, but it's very close to sounding like it's the most Radiohead album of anything that's non-Radiohead. And I'm throwing out The Same, Panavision, and Free and Knowledge as my 3 songs. And that is my favorite album of 2022. In 2020, I picked American Head by Flaming Lips. And last year, We Don't Live Here Anymore by The War on Drugs. So the decade is just kind of crams their standards for me so far.
It's a good pick. That one flew up my charts actually at the end. I totally agree with everything you said. It really is like a Radiohead album, and not like in Rainbows. So appreciate that.
I forget what I gave it. I wasn't crazy about it. Maybe a 3 or something like that. I'm not sure.
Up to 4 for me. You might see it when I do my longer list. All right, honorable mentions. I had 54 4-star and above albums this year. I'm not going to name all of them, but I will name a couple here that I thought were very good and just missed. The Boy Named If by Elvis Costello, Utopia by St. Lucia, Night Roamer by Sarah Shook and Miss Armors, Electricity by Abibio Sound Machine, and I'll do one more. We'll do En Arfor Mikit och Tusen Aldrig Nog by Dunyan. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's Swedish. I know how to pronounce Dunyan, but that first thing means 1 is too much and 1,000 is never enough. Fun psychedelic folk from Sweden. No, psychedelic rock. Sorry, not folk.
All right. I'll give you my 15 to 11. Number 15, another person who was on the channel very early in the year. This was one of my first listens of the year, I think. Listen to the Blood by The Colonel, number 15. Number 14 is Air Guitar by Sobs, cool indie pop band from Singapore. Number 13, I've got House by Shout Out Louds, a band that is just super consistent all the time, Swedish band. Number 12, I've got Sundays by Andrew Combs, a really cool singer-songwriter record, a lot of like clarinet and interesting arrangement stuff happening. And then number 11, I've got A Legacy of Rentals by Craig Finn, his 5th solo record, and kind of quietly starting to eclipse the Hold Steady discography with some really solid solo records.
Yeah, I liked that Craig Finn album. Ones that I considered slipping into the top 10. Obviously, I just talked about Ants from Up There, Black Country New Road, which I was crazy about, kind of slipped, but I'd still say it's probably strongly my number 11. We've Going About This All Wrong by Sharon Van Etten was considered. Dragon, New, Warm, Mountain, Silver Lang's Playbook, whatever it's called, by The Big Thief. And Utopia by St. Lucia as well for Joe. And then one that I'm not going to lie, did not get close to the top 10, but I do have in the 4-star range, that I think Joe will be surprised and happy about. The Mars Volta by the Mars Volta. I really, really dug. And it's a 4-star record, baby.
All right. Well, there you go. Those are the lists. 2022 in the books. Let us know what your favorite records of the year were down in the comments. Keep an eye out for possibly expanded lists, maybe on the website or on Patreon, perhaps Instagram. So follow the links in the description. You may be seeing some more complete versions of our lists. So yeah, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.